Have to press the button to get started.
Yeah, that one start button. Here we go. Man, I kind of feel like we're jamming. Maybe I should turn it down a little bit. Ooh, yeah,
If you want to know something funny, this is
Yes.
actually part of how you get past objections.
Oh, do like some music, some confidence boost? I love it.
Because it
We should make a
resets.
Yes. Oh, this is gonna be. Oh, this is great. I'm gonna keep them playing back in the background there, walking on sunshine. Because after this session, you're all gonna be walking on sunshine. Because you're gonna be like selling machine.
Right.
Overcoming objections left and right. It'll be great. But so excited for this webinar. This is gonna be really fun. I'm pumped. If you got to see Glenda before, remember the swinger story? We'll get into that if no one knows what we're talking about. So really a fun, interesting chat that we had last time. But as everybody's coming in here, put in the chat, where are you coming in from? Let's see. All over the world. Glenda's in Canada, so we do have our good Canadian friend with us here today. It's so excited. India. Whoa. Oh, it's got to be so late for you. Thank you for joining us. Alabama, Tampa, Oregon.
I gotta say, I'm repping Oregon.
Oh,
today.
she does have the Oregon.
Gotta love the Ducks. But, okay, Virginia.
All over the place. It's so cool to see. I love when we always ask this because we're like, oh, England. Yes. Chandler, nice. South Carolina, Oklahoma. Oh, amazing. Well, we're so excited to have everybody here today. And this is actually, I'm just gonna turn the music down a little bit. We're just gonna put a little pause on the music there. But I just want to welcome you all here today. Bonnie and I have been having so much fun with these so far. So if you've been joining us on the past ones, thank you so much, and for joining us again. It's just so much fun. And if you're unfamiliar with, Sales Workshop and why we're doing this, and basically it's back in 2018, we decided to create Travify Academy, which is one of my personal favorite things of Travify, is that we spend time just talking about the industry as a whole and building this community to just help everybody grow. So that's why it's really fun when we get to have these sessions where Sales Workshop, where we spend a week just focusing on sales and then bringing in amazing expert speakers like Glenda, who we have here today. It's so cool. We talk about all these different topics. There's so much to cover, which is awesome. So you can also check out all the previous recordings. So at our website, so where you would have registered for this session, if you come in here, you'll be able to watch the recordings of the past ones. So even if you have to hop up early here, you will be able to watch this recording just shortly after we wrap up. So you'll be able to get all that, see everything. It's all available to you in there. So it'll live on forever. So you can always come back to this session if you just need some motivation again in the future. But with that, okay, I don't want to take up too much time because I know we have a lot to cover here. I'm going to introduce our speaker, but I also want to mention this is going to be a little different, where this session is going to be interactive because that's the way Glenda wants it. We want to have a conversation. We want to have fun, And so it's going to be really fun. We're going to definitely utilize that chat. So we'll keep the chat on so everybody can see comments. So feel free, use that chat, the Q&A. Bonnie and I will be watching that as well as Glenda's going and chatting through everything. But we'll be watching that. But Glenda, I'm going to let you take it away, but I do want to introduce you really quick too, though, just in case if no one has been able to see you in the past, which highly recommend checking out her past webinar, which I'll put it in the chat here after this. But Glenda Beagle is with Art of Selling Travel, and she's a travel sales strategist. I always never know which way to put it, which I love that title. It's so awesome. So Glenda, I'm going to let you take us away now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Claire. I love that. She loves the podcast, Art of Selling Travel podcast, if you're looking for some more resources. But here's a scoop. For those of you that know me already, I've been in the travel industry for almost 20 years. Almost all of it as a travel advisor. I made the shift a couple of years ago into coaching. Probably 2017, 2018, I began that and came back to coach exclusively in the travel industry in 2020 for obvious reasons. My heart is in the travel industry and I wanted to do all I could. But here's the thing. Just like you, I've attended way too many webinars, way too many conferences where everybody just talked at me. And sorry, that's boring. So I wanted to shift it up. So I worked with Stephanie and Bonnie, and they're working behind the scenes with us here. And what they're going to do is when we get to the interactive part, you're going to get an opportunity to come up on screen. So clear the background, do whatever you need to in the first bit here in case you get called up, because I don't know about you, but I want people to actually answer my questions kind of thing when I'm at something. I want it to be really relevant. So that's why we're going to do it that way. So diving in, I'm a sales junkie. I love to sell. I love to geek on sales. I apologize. You may hear the cat crying in the background. That's just part of how we roll around here when you work from home. I'm sure most of you know. But when it comes to sales, there's so many nuances, so many aspects of it and other such. And so that's really what I focus on is the actual sales. Once you get people curious, once you get people going, oh, that sounds really cool. I work with you to get you from there right through to closed, rebooked, and referred. So with that, what do you think is the number one thing standing between you and closed bookings? Name of the podcast, Art of Selling Travel Podcast. But this is the interactive part. So everybody, what is standing between you and getting sales?
In the meantime, I just put your podcast link in there. So I got it in the chat.
Well, it's price, specifically airlines, being super new. Yeah, that's a big one, and that one can really hold us back. Value of using us, air costs, lead generation for newbies, competing with Expedia, lower pricing by competitors. Yeah, these are all introvert. Hello, introverts. People don't get that. They think, oh, well, you're up on stage, you do this. No, trust me, my back is against the wall and I slide in and I slide out and until I'm in my zone. And yet I love to sell. So it is possible to be an introvert and be killer at sales. In fact, being an introvert in sales probably is your superpower. Just saying. Why do I need a TA? Always use AAA and our creatures of habit to help them. I love the creatures of habit. Hello, insert pattern disrupt. Sometimes I do not waste a ton of time with the client that I feel is not going to book. Oh, interesting. So many good ones. Okay. So before we get into that, I want to talk about objection. How many are scared of objections because it means they're going to reject you? Just put a 1 in there if that's you. Oh, look at that. Guess what? You're not alone. That's a big part of it, is that we all seem to think, but if they say no, then they're saying no to me. They're saying no to what I offer. They're saying no. What if I told you objection's not rejection? In fact, objection is a pre-programmed response that we're all born with. Again, let's put it 2. If you've ever gone into a store, had a sales clerk say, hi there, welcome. Is there anything I can help you with today? And you went, no, I'm good. Thanks. Just looking. Now put a 3. If you, as soon as they walk away, you're like, oh, shoot, I totally need help, but I'm not going to go chase them down now. Oh, look at that. Look how that changes. But yet in theory, you've just rejected them. You've just given them an objection. You're like, no, I'm good. I don't need help. But yet we all need help. And it's just part of that pre-programmed. Nobody wants to be a bother. Nobody wants to be pushy. Nobody wants to be that person. I was going to do a slideshow or a slide deck, and then I'm like, no. But, and then I thought maybe I might want to do the 1 just because it was really cute. So I'm going to describe it for you. It's not going to have the same impact, but it was 2 cats. They're fighting, and one is ready to fight, and the other one is like up in the air and taken off. When you feel that sense of rejection, when you get that objection, it's actually a primal response to hit fight or flight. And so that is something that you have absolutely no control over. And it's that moment where all of a sudden you heat up and you get flushed and you're like, I don't know what to say. And it just stops dead because you're like, I don't know what to say with that. So put a 4 if you don't want to even get to the point where they might give you an objection because you don't know what to say. If you've ever been in a situation, I love the 4 all the way across. Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a part of our genetic makeup. It's the amygdala, and it's that fight or flight. And because rejection is something that makes us feel unsafe. Rejection is something that in nature, our bodies are pre-programmed to keep us safe, and rejection makes us feel unsafe. So whether we're being rejected from those that are going to take care of us, or we're being rejected from our client, our brain can't tell the difference. Our brain isn't able to tell the levels of difference between one type of rejection and another. It feels the same and can trigger the exact same response in you. And that is why objections become so difficult for us in sales. It becomes that thing that we all dread or panic. I'm not even going to ask you to answer this one unless you want to, but have you ever avoided doing something in sales for fear of what that objection might be? That it's not even worth to put it out there because they're just going to reject you. Like they're just going to say no. Oh, look at that. You're not alone with that either. I am every bit as guilty as anybody else. And I've got almost 20 years experience doing this. And even I have my moments where I'm like, oh, but what if? But what if? What if you put it out there and they said no? Are you any further behind or are you further ahead? You're at the same place. But what if you put it out there and they're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, why have I not known about this before? Why did I not know this was an option before? There's so much that we can get up in our own heads that create the objections that, here's a little spoiler alert, maybe our clients won't even think of. What if you're telling yourself a story about what your clients are going to think, what your clients are going to say, how your clients are going to respond? And yet they're like, Sally, you going to call me back? I kind of want to book a trip. Oh, I guess Sally doesn't care about me. Well, I'll move on to John. John, you going to call me back? You going to, I want to book Expedia. Oh, look, you're going to answer. Oh, okay. The thing is that it's some of these stories that we're telling ourselves that are going to prevent us from going any further. I have a Facebook group that I use for travel advisors. We do coaching in there every week as best I can when I'm around, or when I'm not traveling. And one of the number one things that I look for in order to get into the group, you have to answer the questions. The number one in there is, what's the obstacle affecting your business right now? I do that because the things I think of aren't necessarily the things you think of, just simply because I've already worked past that. I've already done that. I was telling Stephanie and Bonnie before I joined today, the number one thing I've seen this week that's been coming in is inflation. And while pricing is its own thing, inflation is a whole different way. And I was saying to them, I said, it's so funny because it never occurred to me, because people are still spending money on travel. That's evident when you're seeing full ship charters take place. That's evident when you're seeing awards trips going out. That's evident when you hear that your neighbor went on vacation. But yet, when we're not getting what we want, we start to say it's inflation. We start to say it's all of these other sorts of things. And there's so many factors that go into it where we could actually be preventing objections before they ever happen. There's so many places along the way that you can remove the objections. When we were chatting beforehand, I said, there was always this time you were never to talk about money, sex, religion, and politics. Well, if you've been on TikTok, I think they talk about, I don't even know what they don't talk about anymore. But here's the thing, as salespeople, we're so pre-programmed to not talk about money that the moment you get a money objection, you're like, I can't go any further because how dare I ask somebody? But what if that was a pre-programmed on their factor? What if they're covering something up? I think I told this story on the last time I was here. My uncle and my dad used to farm together for years. They were twin brothers. My mom did all of his accounting. So by proxy, I did a lot of his accounting. And through that, I kind of knew what was in my uncle's bank account in a confidential sort of way. But when it came time for my uncle to book a trip because his girlfriend wanted to go on one, he's like, I can't afford it. And that was the moment it twigged for me. I went, oh. I looked at him, I said, you're such a liar. I said, you can totally afford it. You could afford to take me. But here's the scoop. When we drilled down, and the one trip in particular that he really tried to push the money thing on was my sister's wedding, a destination wedding. So he's my dad's twin brother. They have farmed together their whole life. He's going to the wedding, come hell or high water, he's going. Like, it's just non-negotiable. And through that, I had to find out what it was that was preventing him. Does anybody know why he couldn't afford to go? He was scared to fly over open water. It had nothing to do with price. He was scared. So we rerouted our destination into Cabo. And of course, as you get on the plane and they're like, in the event of a water landing, and he looked at me, he's like, you said water. I said, you lied, I lied, we're all good. But of course, that's an uncle. You're going to talk differently to him. But here's the thing though, is that when we remove that barrier of flying over the water, he's never been to Hawaii, has no desire to go to Hawaii. But it's because he doesn't want to fly that far over open water, because in his head, that's too scary. Money is something that they're going to use to cover up so many other things. So it's in the conversations that we have that then bring us around that we can find out what that is. Like I said, you're not going to tell your client you're a liar. Although I was raised, my mother sold real estate for many years. I am a sales junkie, everything else. There is a saying in sales, and it's buyers are liars. And it's not that they're intentional. They just don't know how to verbalize what it is they want, which is why if you're using intake forms that ask them all the questions, they don't know how to answer those. They think they do, but I promise you, the bulk of your objections lies within those forms because they don't know how to answer them the right way. They don't have the context for it. They don't know what that means. I was on a website not too long ago. Again, sales junkie. So yeah, I stalk a lot of websites for travel agents. And it started off, what are you willing to pay per night for your hotel? 0 to 500, 500 to 1,000, 1,000 to 1,500, 1,500 to 2,000, 2,000 to 2,500, 2,500 or more. And I thought, what? What's the right answer? And that's the other thing. What is the right answer? Your clients don't know what the right answer is. They don't know what they should be putting on there. So maybe they're willing to spend $5,000 or $10,000 a night for the hotel, which is fantastic. But first off, those ones aren't filling out a form. Just telling you here and now. Second, what are they getting with that? Are they getting anything? What if the hotel is not actually the part of the trip that they're worried about paying for? What if they want to know what all those other things are? Are you able to deliver that? We can all look up a super expensive hotel. Our clients want to know that we have value in what it is that we're putting in front of them. That when we talk about a price, what do they get in exchange for that? And it doesn't matter whether you were talking a budget client, a premium client, or a luxury client. They all want to know they're getting their money's worth. And that is a universal law of it all. I will hear from some, they'll say, oh, luxury clients don't care what it costs. They don't care what the end cost is. They care that they're getting what they're paying for. Nobody wants to feel like they're getting ripped off. So even in a luxury world, they still are going to have an opinion about how much things actually cost. So I want, because we saw the questions that came in and this, that, the other, as you guys were registering for this one, there was lots of objections. We're going to do this interactive. And so we're going to make this difficult for Bonnie. If you have an objection, put me in the chat, and Bonnie is going to pick one of you and pull you up on screen.
How fun.
Yeah, who's it gonna be? Who's the
I'll give
winner?
it, 5 seconds on my imaginary clock. So far, I think the person's gonna be Jennifer.
Okay.
Right?
Let's get
Well,
her up.
this is where
Okay.
we insert all the introverted travel advisors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're like, no,
so-
not me, no.
They're like, oh my
That's
God. Okay.
me. I'm like, oh. Oh, we have more volunteers for later, though.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Jennifer, I think you can speak now.
I think I can. Can you hear me?
Woo!
We
Yeah.
can hear you. Hello.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello, how are you?
Good. What part of the world are you from?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
I am going to Pennsylvania next week.
Oh,
I
bring a
leave on
jacket.
Saturday.
It's cold. Bring a jacket. It's cold.
I'm from Alberta.
Then you're pretty good. Okay.
We're used to it.
Fabulous. What is an objection you're facing right now?
Why do I need to book with you besides a big box agency like Costco or a bigger travel place that's going to give you a savings but yet zero help? Getting that a lot here because we have Costco. They're cheaper because you get a whatever gift card to spend with them, or they take some of the commission part of it, so that's a lot of the objection I'm getting. Why book with you versus a big box agency like that?
So what's your response?
My response is I usually typically say, it's my value. I'm here to help you every step of the way. If something happens like a pandemic situation, those Costco clients were left hanging in the dark. So that's kind of what I try to put my value is. I'm a real person. I'm not a big box. Kind of put it that way. My personality comes out.
Awesome.
I'm not an introvert.
So, so where are you encountering those objections? Have they already reached out to you at that point?
Yes, they want to price shop, and that's a lot of it is their price. They say they're wanting to book, but they're price shopping.
Okay, perfect. So, how do they enter your world? Are you doing consultations? Are you doing intake forms? What are you doing?
I do both. So I have both options. If somebody doesn't want to speak with me quite yet and they just want to fill out a form, they're a busy family, I have both options for my clients. So,
okay, perfect. So are you busy?
I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I'm as busy as I can be. So
perfect. So you're busy. You're a stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
Do you have time for doing quotes for people who are just price shopping?
Oh no, so I've had a couple ghosting. So once I've gotten that intake form from a random person, I typically don't send them a quote. I send them a quick email, say, hey, I'd like to chat with you. I have a couple other questions. And then that right then and there tells me if I need to do something. I was just ghosted the other day because of this. So, but I didn't waste time quoting her yet.
Perfect. Okay. So we're already 50% further ahead than a lot. Intake forms, as far as I'm concerned, are where your price shoppers are going to come from. By having intake forms that ask them all those questions, you're inviting price shoppers because it takes them 30 seconds to fill out and they have no investment. They're like, yeah, I filled out a form, whatever. I'll hear back or I won't. I'll just do this for 45 people and we'll see what comes back. There's no commitment on their part, right?
Correct.
Okay. So now they also have nothing. They have zero context for your price. Because when they work with you, what are they getting from you?
So on my intake form, it says,
No.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope. When somebody works with you, what do they get from you? What is the experience of working with Jennifer?
They get first class all the way concierge service. From beginning to end I am with them pretty much on their vacation with them, I would say.
Okay. So one quick thing, introverts will repel from that.
Of course. Yes. I'm an extrovert. So that's me.
Cause they're like, I really want the extra like hand holding, but I need to go on vacation alone. So
I offer it if they want it. They don't have to accept it. I've had clients that have been, once they're on vacation, I don't hear from them. I try to check in, all that kind of stuff. But I also have clients that check in and then I check with them after, and then they're good and golden. So
well, this is one place that, so I chase squirrels, just so we're all established on that. But this is one place where I'm going to say this is where Travefy is fabulous, because when my clients would travel and we'd put them on the Travefy app, I would tell them, if I don't hear from you, I'm assuming everything is amazing, which I can't wait to hear about when you get back. But the second you need my help, you send me a message through this Travefy app and I'm on it, and I'm going to be right there.
oh, for sure. Travefy is my life changer for that exact purpose. So,
but one of the things is that we do a lot of talking too much and overdoing it. And sometimes, you know, that can be the curse of an introvert, because we don't know what to say, so we start to ramble. That can also be the curse of the extrovert, who's like, oh, you just need to know everything about me. And so we've got to really temper that down. But here's the thing. You are going to guide your clients through the entire process. You're going to hook them up with the best possible experience for them based on what they're looking for. And then the best part is they have you. You've got their back from the moment that they start this process right through till they're home again. Costco isn't going to do that. The online systems aren't going to do that. But here's my thing. When they come into your world and they're price shopping, I do a consultation. The first thing I ask them is, okay, you know, like, we're going to get to know each other just a little bit, because you got to have a little bit there, and then just say, okay, so are we going to be ready to go ahead and book this? Or are we just looking to get a ballpark price? Because if they just want a ballpark price, I'm done. I give them, you know, it's going to be 2,000. It's going to be about 3,000. A lot of times I'll say it's about 5,000 per person, give or take 1,000. So now they know it's between 4 and 6, maybe a little more. And so that's all they wanted to know, because they're future planning. But then I'm also going to stay in touch with them along the way, and I'm going to give them those little nudges. But when they come to us and we've gone through that, when you do the consultation, that's where you get to exhibit your authority. That's where you get to show them that you are the travel authority, that you are the person that they need to work with, because you're going to help take care of them. You're going to solve their problems for them. You're going to make the process so simple. And then when they say, oh, well, but Costco's cheaper, and say, yes, but if Costco's cheaper, why did you reach out to me? And then be quiet, which is really hard for an extrovert. But
yes.
Don't say anything else. Let them answer, because now you've just given them an objection. So their fight or flight brain is going to kick in. So now they've got to come up with something. And a lot of times they'll be like, well, I was looking for the best price, and say, okay, not a problem. Is price the only thing you're looking for, or are you looking for a sense of security while you're gone? Do you want to know somebody has your back from beginning to end? And be quiet. When you say those statements, you have to stop talking. I think that was the hardest thing I ever learned in sales, was to stop talking. How do you think that would go over with your client?
Absolutely. And that'll definitely, I like it for sure. I think it's going to toss out those price shoppers for sure. It's going to say, okay, if you're wanting a cheap vacation, I'm not your person. Go with Costco for sure. If you're seeing the value of me, then we'll continue chatting. So yeah, I like it.
Perfect. Only thing I want to say is, instead of if you see the value, when you see the value.
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
So it's a big shift in such a minor way. Anytime you're talking to your client, if you want to work with me, when you want to work with me, if you're ready to book, when you're ready to book, you want to switch if to when 99% of the time.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank
We
you.
feel good?
Absolutely.
Perfect. The beauty of it is Costco is everywhere. We are all competing with Costco. And it's so funny because it is October, November. Costco causes the biggest meltdowns in the travel industry.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that everybody's like, but Costco. And by December, they're like, I'm too busy. I don't care about Costco. So just know that when you ask your clients and say, okay, you know, if you're just looking for the best price, we all know Costco is probably going to give it to you, but what made you reach out to me? And let them know you don't compete on price. I remember doing a fam to Anaheim, and we went to the Howard Johnson Hotel, the Hojos, and they showed us the rooms that the tour operator that we were on the fam with, they showed us where those rooms were. Now, around the back is like this freeway, and you can tell it's loud. So we asked him, we're like, okay, well, who stays in those rooms? He's like, oh, that's where we put all the online ones. That's where all the OTAs and things like that, those are their room blocks. So it's that concept of, I'm sure we've all seen the commercial. We can give you a 5-star hotel for a 3-star price. Yeah, that's because the room is a 2-star, because it's noisy. It's beside the freeway. I stayed at a hotel at an airport that everybody else in my family spent like $150 to $200 to stay at. I got an agent rate of like $20, but my room was between the elevator shaft, the mechanical room with the HVAC system out front. Like there was no window. That's all it was. It was the worst sleep I've ever had in my life, but it was $20. So I'm like, eh. But here's the deal. The question is, how bad or how cheap does a bad vacation have to be to still be a good deal? Heard that one from Nolan Burris years ago. And it's become the motto by which I used to work with my clients. So how cheap does it need to be? Because when things go sideways, you're on your own. That's what you're getting with Costco. That's what you're getting with them. So just know that this is what you get with me, and that's what you get with them. And the choice is yours. And I never wish anything bad. And the reality is, a significant part of the time, things don't go bad. But when they do, there is no amount of money in the world that will ever make up for the service that you will get from me. And you could save whatever Costco is going to let you save on the next 30 vacations. And I promise you, if you needed me just once, I'm worth 10 times that difference. So it's just having that internal knowledge of knowing, one, you don't need every client. That's a first and foremost. When we need people, it shifts the energy we put out there. When we need people, we attract price-driven people. I want you to go through your website, go through all your social medias. Are you talking about price? Are you talking about deals? Are you talking about discounts? Are you talking about being cheap? Are you talking about I'm as cheap as the internet? I'm cheaper than booking online. You use that word, don't come for me for Costco, because you attracted those people. And that becomes a really big part of the objections. I get these objections on pricing all the time. And then we audit their social media. We audit their websites. I'm like, you put out a billboard that went, I'm cheap, come to me. And then he went, why does everybody want to work with me on price? Well, 1 + 2 = 3, just saying. So anyways, any other thing we can help you with, Jennifer, before we move on?
Nope, that is perfect. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Okay. Would anybody else like to come up?
Also, one quick thing. Can you repeat that quote that you said? A couple people had asked. I think you said it was by Nolan
Burris.
Yeah.
How cheap does a bad vacation have to be to have still been a good vacation? And I think I heard that one like 15 years ago at a workshop. So, and then I went on a vacation shortly after. It was super cheap. It was horrible. And I remember it was an all-inclusive in Mexico. It was when one of our tour operators was just getting going with Mexico. So it was $1,800 for 4 of us to go for an entire week. And everything that could go wrong went wrong. The plane broke down. So they booted us all off. They said it'll be 3-4 hours because they got to fly the part. They brought us back in less than an hour. We get on the plane and we're like, that's weird. I know how long it takes to fly from Vancouver to Edmonton. They're like, new plan. We're going to fly the part to Cabo and we'll meet you there. And I'm like, see, I'm okay waiting. Like, the plane wasn't good enough to fly to begin with. Then now you're going to fly us there and you're just going to have like, did we duct tape? Like, what did we do? So we got through that. Then the coach that takes us to the hotel, like every light's going on. He's banging on his dash hood. So he finally puts his clipboard to try and cover the lights. Then we get to the hotel. And it was by far the worst hotel I've ever stayed in. And I remember crying every night, telling my husband how sorry I was that I couldn't afford to get us out of there. because this was a lot of years ago. I was a young mom at the time. This was our first like solo big sort of thing. And it was the worst thing I've ever done. And from that moment forward, I have never let somebody buy on price, because I know how horrible that was and how much that cost me. Because if I would have just waited another 6 months, would have just waited another year, I know what we could have done. And I also know that trip happened to me the way it did so that I could help my clients going forward. And the whole time, Nolan's voice was in the back of my head going, how cheap does a bad vacation have to be? I'm like, it wasn't cheap enough. You could not pay me to go back to that property. And in fact, I turned down multiple bookings afterwards because they insisted on going there. You want to know something funny? Every one of them came back to work with me because they had a horrible time. You have an opportunity to have complete integrity in your sales. And when you sell just because it's cheap, just because it's the price, just because it's going to get the deal done, did you actually help your clients? Did you actually serve them to the best of your ability? Or did you just close a deal? I may be in sales. I may love to close a deal, but I will never close a deal that crosses my integrity. I laugh. I had one client, they came in and they insisted on something, and I told them, you were going to hate it. It was a specific airline. You were going to hate it. I know you well enough to know you were going to hate it. Guess who I saw in the local news around the time their trip was supposed to take place because something went wrong with their airline? Shocker. But here's the deal. My gut told me not to do it. Listen to it. So, okay, let's pick somebody else.
Oh, yes. So I saw Lisa Highshaw had asked this, and I have you ready to go, Lisa. Okay, I'm going to press. And by the way, this feels like a radio station, and I love it. This is really fun. This is so
Our
cool.
next guest.
Our next caller.
Lisa.
Hello out there.
Hello.
Hello, Lisa. Where are you calling from?
I am calling from the Dallas, Texas area.
Awesome.
Ooh, nice.
Awesome. So what can we help you with?
Well, part of my dilemma was what you were just indicating as far as competing with not Costco, but some of the other online media. Like I had a client that I just booked a cruise with. She and her spouse was a repeat customer. The client, they came back to me. However, some of the things that I am explaining to her, she's like going on media, social media. Oh, they said this and they said that. So I'm just wanting to gather the choice of words,
Okay.
to say, hey, yeah, they said this, but, and to market to try to grab some of those that are out there searching the media for details.
Okay. So first and foremost, we all know there's never been a clickbait ad out there, right? From the news?
Never.
Never. Right?
Right.
I see it all the time. Whether we're talking about pricing, whether we're talking about a scare tactic, like legit, I used to have people, they would call me up and they'd be like, so the news is saying Mexico is really scary. And I said, yeah, they're having a really slow news week this week. And they're like, what? Like, read further. They had nothing else to talk about. So they talked about that, and there's so many things that we're going to hear and whatnot. My question for you is, are what they're reading, if it's contradicting what you're saying, which one was in the end accurate? What you're saying or what they're reading?
It was a toss-up. For example, they were on the cruise. I was explaining to them what they need to prepare for, and then they would go to the social media and, oh, they said we need this and we need that. I'm like, oh yeah, you do need that. That's what I explained to you. I emailed you the details. However, the additional part was like for something like extension cords or something about the room, So I think it was a toss up, but the person on social media added a little bit more. And obviously, I guess she didn't really pay a lot of attention to it because she came back. Yeah, that was that bed bug part too, but not for Paris, but she came back to me for, for another trip. So I'm glad about that. But I just
Okay.
wanted to be able to speak to other clients, because we're competing with social media on certain things as well.
Okay.
And
Okay.
cost too. So yeah.
Okay. So I actually think you have a different objection than what you realize. I
Okay.
think your objection's actually within yourself.
Okay.
And I think you're probably, from what I'm hearing,
Mm-hmm.
you want to make sure you have every answer before it ever comes to you, right? So that you
Well-
always are one step ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. That's like a freaking unicorn. It's never going to happen. The faster you can accept that,
Yeah.
the far happier and relaxed you will be at what you do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I didn't think about it that way, but yes.
Yeah. See, that's the thing with an objection. Like I was saying with my uncle, oh, it's too expensive. An objection is rarely what it is, which is why when we were working on this session, I'm like, no, they got to get on camera. Like we got to get them so that we can talk. Because they're like, well, you could just answer questions out of the chat. I'm like, no, because the questions they ask are never going to be the questions they want the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
So I could give you all the ways that you could market this. I could give you all the ways you could overcome, like do all this. That's not actually your objection. Your objection is, how do I look smarter than I feel? How do I look like I have all the answers? You don't have to have all the answers. You have to have the humility to be willing to look into it.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so when
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
So when you get something, you're like, that's a really interesting perspective. I've never heard it put that way before, but you know what? That sounds like it would make sense. Let me just double check, because I always want to make sure that my clients are getting the most accurate information. So let me double check that and get back to you.
That's right. Yeah, because I do, when she did give me the information, I'm like, oh, thank you. Okay, I'll look at it. But, I looked at it a little bit and then I'm like, okay,
But
now I know.
know that anytime you do things in email, they're going to read it in whatever voice you give it to them. So you always want to be like, oh, that's a great perspective. You want to use words like, oh, that's great. That's good. Like, so let me look into this for you and get back to you. And then when you do, I am a huge proponent of using a system like Loom or some sort of voice audio. Like if you're going to email them rather than send them or give them a phone call and leave them a voicemail, send something they could hear your voice. So you can be like, okay, so you were right. This was this, that, the other. But here's where it's a little bit different from what you read. And so I want to make sure that you have all of this.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, then I was on the right track, because that was another 2 clients rather together. And I did that. I followed up and said, okay, this is what I found. This is what I told you is true. However, I went a step further. Okay, well, then I'm on the right track.
And once they get excited for their trip, they're going to look for more information on their trip. And we all know the internet is filled with half truths, half this, half that. Everything that picks up steam has to have a thread of reality to it in order for it to catch on. The question is, do we dig further? Well, clients don't. The beauty is you've built a relationship with your clients that they reach back to you because they are seeing you as the authority. So when a client reaches back to you and asks you more questions, don't fear it. Embrace it, because you are their trusted source. Where we had FOMO for all these years, fear of missing out, it is now FOMO. It's fear of messing up. Your clients want to know you've got their back. Your clients want to know that you're going to double check things for them. If they're coming to you and saying, I read this or I heard this or whatever, what do you know about it? If you don't have the direct answer right then and there, just let them know you're going to look into it. But know that they came back to you because you're their ultimate trusted source. But if they start asking and they really push back at everything else, because the internet's never been wrong. Like straight up. So
right.
But yeah. Oh, Darren, we always have social influencers who have a following and think they're the deal. Yeah. So remember, we can cut through smoke screens and hype and become their trusted advisor. Absolutely. And that's just it. They don't want to have to like fact check and this, that, the other. You are their fact checker. They're coming back and they're like, okay, just making sure. And the way you respond to that is what's going to set you up for your future bookings. That is what's going to set you up to whether or not they're going to refer you. That's what's going to set you up to whether or not they want to rebook with you.
Great. And I just got a referral, I think a day ago from the same client. So
Perfect.
thank you.
Yeah. So you are their trusted source. Embrace it. So,
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We've got time for at least one more. Does anybody else want on here?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I know there was one other person, Alyssa Hoover, who had asked. So I'm pulling you up. Here we go. Again, in my little studio here. Here we go. Okay. Allowing to talk. Okay. I think.
Hello, Alyssa.
Hello.
Hello. Where are you from?
I am from Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
I hear
How
it
can
in
we
the
help
voice.
you?
Well, it's kind of hard because I am from the north. So that's what a lot of
nice.
people say. I go home, oh, you sound southern, but down here they say, oh, you're northern. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Little
Okay.
mix. My question is, and while listening to everything that you were saying about, the people that fill out the forms are more or less the people that are just shopping, basically.
Mhm.
How do I get even anyone to, to actually even call me or even message me? I know I do a lot of Facebook and Instagram. I've tried, I have that sales funnel.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm just not reaching out to the people. And I don't know if it's the algorithms that I'm having issues with, or if it's just, I'm just not reaching the people, or maybe I'm sending the wrong message.
Do you get any inquiries whatsoever?
Seldom.
Okay. How often is seldom? Because everybody's got a different opinion. Just like the best beach has 1,000 different opinions.
I would say maybe, and I hate to say this because I feel so bad with it.
No judgment.
Maybe one every 2-3 months.
Okay.
I mean, it's that bad.
Nope. And you know what? And that's fair. You are not alone. There's a lot out there that are struggling with that. So this technically isn't an objection question. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here just for the sake of this type of presentation. But what I'm going to say is I'm going to encourage you to genuinely audit everything you have, audit your message. What are you saying? What are you putting out there? What is the energy you're putting out there? How often are you putting it out there? Are you talking to a specific person? Are you talking with a niche in mind? Or are you just, hey, I have a travel deal. Hey, I have this. Hey, I have that. And it's like all over the place. Start having a conversation like you were at a cocktail party, having a conversation with just one person. Because when it's with one person, then the others start to lean in, the others start to lean in. It's hard to get the momentum going. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Getting the momentum going is the hardest part. I don't believe there's a magic pill. There will be 1,000 coaches out there that will tell you, I'll give you a magic pill. All you got to do is dance on TikTok. All you got to do is do this on Instagram. It is an entire strategy that goes into it. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to say, audit all of your messaging and then send me a message on Art of Selling Travel on Instagram. If you're on there, I think you just said you are. Send me a message on there and I'll give you a few more tips. Okay.
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 All right.
And we'll do that. So, because I'd like to keep it to objections of the sales process, but I would say there's something not connecting in your messaging. So they're not connecting, or as much as we all say, oh, I'm always on Facebook. Are you on it or are you using it? Because there's two entirely different conversations. How often are you posting? Are you using an auto poster system where somebody else is putting feed out there for you, in which case you're no different? What's making you uniquely you? What's making you the reason they should choose you? And how are you going to serve them?
Okay. And I do know that the ones that I do get, they are always asking me, I want someplace cheap. I want to go to.
So, okay. So this one I can work with. So I want someplace cheap. What is your next question?
My next question to them is, well, if you want someplace cheap, then that may be an issue that I will not be able to help you with.
Perfect.
Because
We're
I
gonna
sell
change that.
quality vacations and trips.
We're going to change that.
Okay.
Anytime somebody says, I want cheap, I want best, I want most, what does cheap mean to you?
Cheap is cheap.
No. That's what you say to them.
Oh,
Don't bring your own bias in.
okay.
Because cheap might be how your audience equates value. Because I've worked with clients that are like, I need a cheap deal. I'm like, great. What does cheap mean to you? They're like, well, that I don't have to pay more than I need to. And then we go through, I work through their list of everything that they want. And I say, okay, great. So just so you know, you're looking at 15 to 20,000 a person. He's like, huh, that's a pretty cheap deal. Yeah, sounds good. Here's the thing. Cheap has so many meanings. Don't put your own thoughts of what cheap is. Ask them. Because I've had people come to me and say, I want the best beach. I'm like, great. So if in the chat real quick here, what does best beach mean to each of you? What is the best beach? If a client said to you, what is the best beach? Mandy, one with no sand. Clear water, no sargassum. And all inclusive, white sand, uncrowded. Look at that, best beach. No sand, white sand. Do we need to go further? Best beach, best this, cheap that, has no value in the conversation until you add the context. And that's what consultations are. That's why forms don't work, because you have no context for what those answers are. Because we need to talk with our clients when they're talking this, that, the other, and understand value. So cheap. So like you're good sleeping in the hotel lobby, like that's pretty cheap. And admittedly, I am a sarcastic person. I use a little bit of sarcasm. It doesn't appeal to all clients, which is great, because if they don't get it, that's not my jam. Because I love to have fun with my clients. But I legit did have a client who told me, I don't know why I'm paying for things, because I end up sleeping in the lobby anyways. He's like, I'm too drunk. I'm like, wow, I feel like you're not actually my ideal client. But he was fun. He was nice. And, you know, in 15 minutes, we were always done. So it just, I did book him. But did I search out more people like him? Heck no. Heck no. But just because somebody says cheap, it doesn't mean you're kind of cheap. What if somebody makes $1 million a year and they're asking for a cheap vacation? Instantly, I'm going to bet a lot of us went to judgment. What do you need cheap for? You make $1 million a year. But what if cheap to him meant that they spent $150,000 or $200,000 on their last trip, and he'd just like to spend $20,000 this time? But if we don't know anything about them and we don't have any context to put that to, cheap could be a $200 trip, or it could be a $200,000 trip. We need the context that goes with it.
Okay, so how do you talk to someone when they say they want cheap, and you do ask that question, and this has come up for me, and I would say, well, okay, what is cheap? And, you know, they go through their spiel, and then I'm like, well, what are we looking for? Are we looking for, you know, X amount of money? What's going on? And
okay. That's
you.
the next problem. When I train on consulting, I never ask price until the end. Ever. Because if I was going to replace the roof on my house, I use this example a lot, which I always laugh. And I'm like, can you tell that I need to replace the roof on my house? I have no idea what that's supposed to cost. So if they said to me, okay, so how much are we looking to spend? I'm like, as cheap as possible. But is that actually what I want? No, I don't want to spend more than I have to, but I don't want to replace my roof right away. I want to make sure I have quality materials. I want to make sure I have all of this. But in terms of dollars, I have zero concept of what that's going to cost. Therefore, I have no context of which to give him a price. And as a client, to say a number is incredibly intimidating to me. I hit fight or flight and I pull out stupid numbers that I have no idea if he's going to give me a quote, if he's going to jack up my quote. Like, I have no idea. Do I say 5,000? Do I say 15,000? Do I say 50,000? I need to replace my roof. I don't know what it's going to cost. So therefore, if they say what are you willing to spend? Well, what am I willing to spend? I'm willing to spend whatever it takes. But what do I want to spend? As little as possible. And there's two different stories taking place in there. So when I do consultations, I never, ever talk budget until we're doing a summary of everything they're looking for. Because a lot of times when they go through and they talk about all the things they want, they themselves are going to self-audit what they're willing to spend. Because then the question becomes, okay, great. So here's the problem. Your price point mixed with the duration and the quality that you want are nearly impossible to get. So which one are you willing to compromise on? Here's a little secret. More than 90% will not worry, or they will not compromise on quality, duration, or location. They will compromise on the price because they didn't know how much to spend to begin with. They may change when they go. They might change how long they go, but more than 90% will change their price.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm just in a quick bit of a wrap up here. So obviously, as you guys can see, you're not alone. We all have objections. We have objections about why should we use a travel advisor? We have objections about this, that, or the other. Another common one that I see is, okay, that's great. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to talk to whoever or whatever. Here's my little final nugget for you. When you hear that, say, great. To make sure that you have all the information, what questions do you think they're going to ask you? Because then I can help give you those answers. Because some of us are going to use, like, I'm Canadian. We're going to use some really nice, polite excuses to sidestep the closing. The hardest position to be in sales is indecision. It is far easier for them to say no. In fact, it is easier to turn a no into a yes than an indecisive client into a yes. So you want to make sure that you're asking, okay, great. I totally get it. And they should. What questions do you think they're going to ask? So that we can make sure that we've got everything ready. And they're like, well, I don't know, like this. And it's like, do you have any other questions? Before we even get in there, because if they've got that, I don't know, and they're leaning back and they're pulling back out of the conversation, here's the thing, they're not sold, which means they're not going to sell the other person. And that is the number one issue in there. They're going to come back and they're going to blame it on their spouse. Anybody ever blame something on their spouse, their kids, their parents, their whoever? Every time. Ever blamed being late because you had to walk the dog or do something else? And meanwhile, you're like, I just totally lost track of time. Or is that just me? But here's the thing. People are going to give you these things. The question is, what do you do with them? So if you want to know more about how to deal with objections, how to deal with sales, other such, I invite you to join me over in my Facebook group. It's Travel Agent Objections. The group itself is called Sticky Sales Scenarios for Travel Advisors, but the URL is facebook.com/groups/Travel Agent Objections. You can find it there, or check me out on any of my platforms, Art of Selling Travel, and then of course the Art of Selling Travel podcast. And if you have questions, please just send them to me, or better yet, join the Facebook group, ask your questions in there. We would love to have you in there. And you do have to answer questions in order to get in. And the number one is, what is stopping you? What's the obstacle you're facing in your business? I use that to come up with training, which is why we're doing a full pricing training on Friday in there for you. So thank you.
Perfect. I was going to say, after this workshop Friday, head over to Glenda's side.
Yes.
Let me go ahead, though, as usual, to wrap things up. But no, that was super fun. Thank you again, everyone who got on. I know that
was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to do maybe even like a support circle for agents, because the experiences everyone faces. Whew. But speaking of Facebook, we will be posting, as usual, a post talking about Glenda's session. So if there were any questions, or you want to keep the conversation going or ask questions to your fellow advisors, that will be in there soon. And then like usual, recordings will be available. If anyone does have questions regarding the sessions, always feel free to let us know at professional@travify.com. Always have to give the support plug. But, and Glenda, I'd like to extend a formal, invitation to join us for travel trivia on Thursdays if you have time. But fun time, grab a drink of something, coffee, water, who knows, alcoholic beverage, end of the day. But Stephanie, I'll let you take it away and let us know what's coming up for the last session of the day.
Yes, I can't believe it's like last session of the second day. It's insane. But our next one is going to be a panel discussion. So kind of similar to this a little bit, where we'll have just faces on here talking, and so it'll be really fun. We're going to do a panel discussion though. With two travel industry colleagues who focus on group travel. So we're going to spend some time talking about, all the group travel space of really focusing in on how to target to find your right travelers. So then that way you can market to them, engage with them, sell to them. So we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff like that. So it's going to be really good. So join us at 3 p.m. Central time. But this, again, as Bonnie said, was awesome. I saw the comments are really awesome. Someone said over the roof expectations. So thank you so much, Glenda. It's always so much fun having you on here. So it was a great pleasure.
I love coming back, and I love the interaction. Like, yeah, we want to do if we want to do weekly radio show, I'm down for that.
Yes, I love it.
Yes.
And we can just chase squirrels. That's the title. Could be chasing squirrels.
Chase squirrels, do all the fun things.
Exactly.
Oh, didn't get the swinger story. Come over to my Facebook group. I'll tell you the
Yes.
swinger story there.
Yeah, no, that's not going to get you over there. I don't know what will. I did put in, by the way, the Facebook group in there. I love it too. That's so awesome. So thank you again, and we will see you again here soon. Thanks again, Glenda. So much fun.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.